We are into hour number overdrive, into our 5th hour today. I did 5 hours and 15 minutes yesterday. We're only going to do about 30 more today and take a few of the callers that are left over from the live transmission that's on the AM and FM, XM, everything else. Pastor Lindsey Williams with his inside intel with his former Big Three oil company executive has given him so many key insights before. Lindsey, you went over the fact that they are looking at using a nuke. The fact that you're saying it's 20,000 to 70,000 pressure, that they went into some type of magma chamber, volcano. I mean, they're drilling down to the ends of the crust, close to the mantle. And we know they have these batholiths and other things that are forming. So very, very serious. And we're seeing this kind of being dribbled out now. We've seen the propaganda of, oh, they've fixed the leak over and over again to give false hope. And, oh, there's only a few thousand gallons, then 50,000, then 100,000, then 200,000. Now they say it's 500,000. Now they're saying they're underestimating that. You're saying your oil company sources are saying, what, 4 to 5 million gallons a day?
Yes, but I'm quite sure that they were being very conservative because they knew I was going to quote them. And so you can put it very much above that.
Okay, so let's run through recapping what you've already broke and the other news you didn't have the time to get to while I was taking calls.
Okay, first of all, I want to touch on a subject that you just casually mentioned at the beginning of your program. You said that Goldman Sachs sold much of their BP stock only a few days just prior to the Gulf oil gusher, and that BP's president sold 1/3 of his stocks just prior.
Yeah,
to
BP sold 44%. He sold 1/3. Turns out the Goldman Sachs chairman of International was also the chairman of BP, but got out a month before.
I'm so glad that you mentioned this because it gives me an opportunity to say it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared do it. I lived with these people for 3 years. The average person has not the slightest idea as to the mindset of the elite. I have written 3 books attempting to tell people how these people think. The elite are a part of the occult. Are you catching me, folks? Now, keep in mind, I've been a minister of the gospel, the Bible, for 50 years. I lived with these elite for 3 years. They are a part of the occult. You wonder why did Goldman Sachs sell this stock so many days ahead of time? Their occultish connections told them to. You've got to understand that we're dealing with a spiritual warfare here that is so far beyond the imagination of the average person that unless you lived with them, you couldn't understand why BP president would sell this amount of stock. It wasn't that he knew this thing was going to blow. It's that his occultic connections. And Alex, you have even made a video on the occult. I know it was. You went out to California and
yeah, Bohemian Grove. I mean, it's even admitted that
it was marvelous. These people are a part of the occult, and as a result, they knew in advance what to do, not because they knew this thing was going to blow, but because their occultic connections had told them so.
Well, the word is, and I'm not into the occult, but I've had people that are into astrology, well-known businessmen here in Austin, I'm not going to say names, that have visited me saying that, you know, there's going to be catastrophe in the next few months, and this was before the spill, and there's going to be all this stuff happening, and it's going to get worse and worse going into July because, you know, the astrology says it. And I know that Ronald Reagan made every decision he did, down to the minute of a speech, to the color of his tie, off of his astrologer. And I'm not bashing Ronald Reagan, because when you go to mainstream news about Tony Blair, he goes all over the world doing these rituals. Every morning he's possessed by something called the spirit of the light and flops around on the ground. So is his wife. Francois Mitterrand paid the architect to have 666 pink pieces of glass to make the Louvre pyramid. He has publicly said he worships Lucifer. And yes, they believe that just like George Washington thought, you know, the God of the Bible was giving him guidance, that these elitists, whether they're psychic or whatever, and then manifest it through the occult, they believe they're being guided by their spirit guides.
And they are. You better believe they are. and their spirit guide. You see, there are two gods in this universe. There's the true and living God of the Bible who created all of heaven and earth and sent his Son to die for us on the cross as a forgiveness and perpetuation of our sins. Then there is the prince of the power of the air, the God of this world, better known as by the average person as Lucifer or the devil, and these people serve that God.
Well, I tell you, you know, they sure believe they're getting this goblin guidance. All I know is that every one of these creatures started dumping their stock at record levels right before this happened, Lindsay.
Well, let me assure you that from every source that I have talked with, that what happened in the Gulf of Mexico is positively an accident. It was not planned. It is not a part of any conspiracy.
Well, if their devils could tell them this was going to happen, or whatever interdimensional creatures they're communicating with, that's what they believe they're doing. I mean, even if it's not true, folks, that's what they believe. I mean, that's just raw research. I keep running into that. That's what they're really into. Even if they've got these connections, why couldn't the creatures tell them that the oil spill was coming?
All right, that gets me down to my next point. And I'm glad you led into it perfectly, Alex. We're thinking exactly alike. So after I talked with my Mr. X with the book Energy Non-Crisis, after I had communicated with a number of other oil people, and have you noticed, Alex, that every person who has called into your show today has agreed with what this Mr. X told me? Now,
yes.
Folks, I do not take credit for any of this. I must say emphatically that it is by the providence of God that I was ever allowed to be the chaplain on the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline and given executive status and sat in the board meetings. And I do not take credit for the things I'm saying today. I knew nothing about such things as that cap that was on the well, the fail-safe valve, and all this lingo. I didn't even recognize it until this individual told me. And the fact that they went into a strata, please use the proper words, because the oil people will laugh at us if we don't. They went into a strata of oil that is so phenomenal that no company, including the Russians, have ever drilled into it before. Now, keeping all of this in mind, after I had talked with these people about this, I said, okay, what are you going, how does this fit in? Now, I had to be very vague and yet try to get an answer out of them. Alex, I stand here shuddering almost. The elite, even though they did not create this, even though they did not know it was going to happen except by the occultic words, the elite planned to use this disaster to accomplish their timeline of 2010 and 2012 exactly as was given to me by the 87-year-old elitist. And I appeared on your show. I gave every bit of it. It's on my 6 DVD set, 8 hours of DVD viewing, and they have told me that they are going to use this Gulf scenario as a method of accomplishing their timeline for 2010 and 2012 exactly as they told me they were going to do it. And, folks, they will. You have it coming. Now, my opinion, from what I have heard from Mr. X and my BP informants, you are not going to see this world capped anytime soon. Alex, I'm making a prediction here. I think that you probably are going to be calling me every few weeks for an update, and I'm going to be calling Mr. X every so many days for an update, because we are going to see an event of such epic proportion that it is going to devastate much of the finances and the people of the United States of America, and will get Mr. Obama's programs through exactly like he wants them. And the elite have already told me that everything they gave me a year and a half ago, that they are going to use this as one of the major methods, now that it's happened, of getting their 2012 timeline done, Alex.
Well, we're looking at a live feed right now of the oil gusher. And, I mean, it is in that incredible pressure that would crush any submarine we've got that's manned. They've got some submersibles that aren't manned that can go down that far, obviously, because they're down there working on it. But it is just blasting out of the hole there. and it's so hard to work in 5,000 feet of water. We looked up this email about vanadium, this highly toxic chemical, and sure enough, I've got Huffington Post, I've got major oil sites that this is composited from. It says in a